But stats and data are only important and relevant, really, in a static marketplace. As soon as you are in an incline or a decline, you have to make an inference on the data. And I think a lot of people are making that mistake.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning to the show today. A couple months ago, we had Josh May with Remax of Grand Rapids on the show. You guys told me how many tangible takeaways you got when he was on. So bring Josh back for like a celebrity co-host. He's going to help us with a couple episodes here. And he's also connecting us to some powerhouse agents that he's met along his journey. So today, from Minnesota, where the weather is just as cold and beautiful as Grand Rapids, where Josh and I are, we have Nevin Raghuveer, Remax agent, top producer. He has an incredible story. So let's just get started because we have a lot to cover today. How did you get started? What was your origin, superhero kind of story?
Well, I've got a few different pieces to that, but I'm actually from Canada. I was born in Montreal and but grew up in Winnipeg. And I backed into real estate. And in my last year of business school, getting a finance degree, I was actually selling suits. And
that explains for the people that will watch this later your dapper appearance today.
Oh, well, I thank you very much. And while I was doing that, I was in my second to last year, and there was a development family that lived across the street from us. And they were like, Nevin, why don't you just come and do some work for us? And I ended up sitting in a model home from Thursday to Friday and studying and then selling. And I sold 10, 12 homes part-time in my last year. So I embraced that. But I was really driven to be an entrepreneur. And long story short, I ended up starting a coffee company when I graduated. And that actually brought me to Minneapolis. So I left Winnipeg by myself. I moved to Minneapolis, started a coffee company, got that rolling, kind of missed the big hit on that by 6 months, and then sold off the pieces and then recalibrated. At that time, I was dating a gal, which became my wife. And I moved back to Winnipeg, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I said, I want to embrace entrepreneurship, but I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. So I went back and I sold real estate, and I had some connections up there. So I got right back into it. And I sold real estate in Winnipeg for about 2 years and did really, really well. And so everybody said when we got married, I should just go back to the U.S. in Minneapolis and start doing that. And that will be the platform for me to embrace entrepreneurship at a much higher level. And after much thought over it, I said, let's do it. And so then I moved down here, and my number one objective, this is 2002. My number one objective was to get my practice going down in the Twin Cities. And I had like zero sphere. I knew nobody, like absolutely nobody. The only people I knew were people I had done business with coffee, but I wasn't about to solicit them for referrals in real estate because they're like, what do you know about the Twin Cities? You've only lived here for, really on and off for 2 years. So I started cold calling builders because I had some experience in new construction, and landed a builder on the outskirts of the Twin Cities and sold homes for them, got some backups. And then I really started to try to focus that into a geographic area in the western suburbs. And year after year started, building slowly but surely. Then, of course, 5 years later, as the business was starting to pick up, we started to hit some pretty significant turbulence in the real estate market. At that time, my wife was working for Best Buy, and we had made a family decision that, she would stay home when we decided to have kids, which we had a child in 2007. So as the real estate market started to go sideways and even south considerably, I was standing there by myself going, geez, this might have been a pretty tough decision. And long story short, I just kind of probably through a combination of hard work and ignorance, I just grinded real hard and built my practice over the market downturn. And it just started to grow very, very rapidly. And then when the market started to even out and grow even ever so slightly, we just took off. And ever since then, the rest has been history.
Well, that's such an awesome story to tell right now. Like we're recording this in end of 2023. And although there's a lot of opportunities in the market, I think for a lot of agents and real estate professionals out there, there's some uncertainty. They're feeling like it's different from last year. So you mentioned like laying those seeds down and grinding hard when things were tough, and how then the minute things changed, you exploded. What was your business like right before '07? And then what are some of those things that you did or systems that you put in place after, like during or after?
Well, I don't know how I got this mindset, but I consider myself very lucky to have adopted that right at the beginning. But I literally said every client or person that I interact with, I treated them like they were a gold bar from the Federal Reserve, because the sale of whatever they did with me, the future value of that relationship was worth exponentially greater than the one transaction. And so everything that I did in the first really 5 to 8 years was predicated on making sure that every relationship that I have, I knock it out of the park in terms of customer service, in terms of delivery, post sale. I made sure that I was in their face for anything they possibly needed. And I didn't even care many times about the cost of delivering that service. If I look at it from a revenue per hour perspective, I was probably working relatively cheap, but there was a lot of investment being made. And I really, really think that was the key.
And let me jump in here real quick because Nevin, so I know who Nevin is. The listeners need to know who Nevin is. And the reason why I say this is because people need to know this is a guy that's considered in the top 50 in the entire country with all of RE/MAX, right? Like, here's a guy that's been in the business for over 20 years. And he's doing things at a real high level. But what I know about Nevin is he's also not out there trying to figure out the next greatest and best way of how to spend more money. He just told you about how he treats his clients. And I want to get into a little bit more about how you treat your team and what your team structure looks like, because I've always been fascinated by how you run your team up there in Minneapolis. And I think the listeners can learn a lot from this as they're maybe thinking about how to grow a team.
Sure. I guess I'll start with what we have right now, and then I'll work it backwards, and then I'll let you kind of expound on that. So right now we have, what we would call an office manager. And there's a lot of stuff moving, at our practice right now. We've got a lot of things going on. Then we have an agent, and we had a marketing person. So right now we're reorganizing because essentially my office manager has just ascended so rapidly. And so she is essentially moving into a different area in assisting me. And we have to fill in the void of this marketing / administrative person. So that's what we're doing right now. Now, how I got there. So obviously do you want me to kind of go through the journey?
Well, I don't want to hear so much. Well, I mean, you can talk about whatever you want to talk, but what I think the listeners are going to be fascinated by is to hear how you're set up more on all your team members are more on a salary position.
Yes.
Which
Absolutely.
I've been fascinated to hear about this.
Yeah. So, when in 2015, and I brought on a quote unquote buyer agent, everybody told me I was doing the wrong thing. And what I said is, I'm not prepared to bring someone on and give them a split. Fundamentally, that just didn't make sense to me. It made zero sense. So I brought a buyer agent on and I paid him a salary, and a pretty good one at that. And then I had bonuses in there. And obviously this agent was completely licensed, but everything was written under my name. They were an employee. If they brought deals to the table, they would essentially be my clients, unless he decided to leave at some point. Now, the notion that drove that was protection of my business. And to this day, that is the number one thing that kind of governs everything. And I believe when we all started, we were just lonely individuals, right? When we first started selling real estate. And so at the end of the day, as we built that up, we were building a brand, and our brand, make no mistake, You call it how, whatever level you are, you're a team, you're this, you're that, but you are the brand. And the moment you don't understand that, or you lose sight of it, is the moment that I think you start to decline. And so I did not want to bring someone in that was purely compensated on a commission in charge of a gold bar of mine, which was a client, because at the end of the day, they want to sell. And I get that. So the salary gave them enough headway to get things done. And I obviously was really, really big on how to take care of the client, telling them, no, don't buy this home. This is not the right deal. This is not the right time to sell, so on and so forth. And that worked really well for me because the clients ended up loving this guy. And he just dazzled them in terms of service and charisma and getting along with them. And then when we had to do the deal, we would work it together. And it allowed my business to grow and grow and grow. And so that is a feature that I have adopted to this day.
Well, one of the things I love about that is you think of like the typical team model out there, and not ragging on any of them, because so many people across the country have a normal team model with a normal fee structure, and they do a great job. But a lot of teams, in essence, like when you give away business to your buyer's agents and they're on a commission, you're in essence taking that gold bar, splitting it in half, and saying like, I never want this back, because that relationship becomes their person in essence in perpetuity. I think back to the first house that I bought, right? Like I called the agent that I truly wanted to work with, and he handed me off to someone else. 5 years later, I used that agent the second time. And I think so many consumers were like that, because this is a relationship business at the end of the day. So I'm assuming your business is very, very client centric. And I don't even want to use the word past client, because they are your active current clients forever. I'm assuming that's the case?
No, that's precisely correct. I mean, we want and we aspire to be counselors, and advisors long term. And we want to be able to deliver high-end luxury services to these clients. And a lot of people, when I say that, they're like, whoa, you must be a luxury agent. I mean, we do sell some expensive homes, but this applies to somebody who wants to buy a $60,000 piece of land. We don't discriminate at all between somebody who's buying a piece of land for 60 grand or buying a home for $3 million. We treat them the same. And that's been the bedrock of how we've built this.
Real estate has a lot of contracts. I want this podcast to have a social contract as well. Here's what I need from you. If you're listening to the show and you get something valuable out of it, or you hear something that you think, that's awesome, I want you to send me a DM on Instagram, or if you find my email, send it that way. The more feedback that I get helps me to put together better shows and attract better guests.
This is such an important conversation, just because, again, there's a lot of noise out there about how to structure your business. And there's plenty, I wouldn't say there's a wrong way, but this is just opening people's perspective to making sure they are controlling their business for the future and really getting to think about that. And you guys are rock solid at this gold bar theme that you mentioned, which I absolutely love, because I think there's a stat rolling out there for every relationship. If you treat it the right way, that one relationship is potentially worth $100,000 over the course. Go ahead, Matt. You're going to jump in? No, you're good. That one relationship is potentially worth $100,000 if you do treat that the right way. So with those relationships and gaining new relationships, how are you out there competing against your peers right now in this market, especially in this market when there is a lot of noise? Like, how are you structured to clear the noise and dominate your market and take more market share right now?
So I love that question. And, I guess I have to answer it with this depth provided. So one of the things that drove me nuts between 2017 and, I guess the middle of 22 was, we had so many people enter the real estate market thinking they could sell homes, blah, blah, blah. And this goes back to something that I believe you have to understand, but you have to deliver a value proposition to the client in every different type of marketplace. And you have to be able to adapt to that. So to answer your question head on, I love this market because it's so easy to differentiate between 99% of the agents, because they're really not bringing anything to the table. the key is what are you trying to deliver to the consumer? Now, in 2020, when I would go on listing presentations, or 21 for that matter, I would tell my listing client straight to their face, you do not need me to sell your home. You are not hiring me to sell your home. And I would tell them that right up front. Some people would be like, whoa, that doesn't make sense. I said, what you need me for is to make sure that you've sold a home for the most amount of money. Because you could put a cardboard sign at the front of your driveway and you can sell your home by 5 p.m. tonight. And obviously you don't need me for that. But if you want to make sure that A, you have a seamless experience, B, you're getting the most amount of money for your home, and C, you're going to get customer service at an unprecedented level, that's why you're going to hire me. Now, fast forward to today. Why are you hiring me? Well, interest rates, a 30-year fixed, as far as I know as of today, I think it's at least 7.875, perhaps 8%. Sales are slowing down. They're still happening. So you have to have a strategy to sell the home. So now when you call me, you say, Nevin, I need you to sell my home. I don't know how to do this. And I don't think most other realtors do. And so what I have noticed is, for instance, the last 2 homes that we've sold, do you mind if I give you specific examples?
Please.
Okay. So the last 2 examples where we've sold listings in the last couple of weeks, I have told my clients, you need to be enormously patient, because the liquidity of the buyer supply it's been diminished considerably. So you cannot hyper react to time and metrics that you would have considered 6 months or even a year ago. And that patience will pay. When the buyer arrives, then we have to be aggressive and we have to sell. And we've been able to do that. And I look at some of my competitors, and some of these people entered the market in the mid 2000 teens, and they are just price reduction. I'm thinking, okay, I understand, you got to price reduce sometimes, but if the market is dormant and you're reducing the price of the home, do you even know what you're doing? It doesn't make sense. So, adopting a strategy, being able to explain what's going on in the marketplace, providing that value to the seller. If you are skilled at your craft, if you take care of your craft, if you invest in understanding and learning, you can really, really separate yourself right now. And to me, that's an enormous opportunity.
Something you mentioned that I want to go back to really quick. You mentioned how you used to start those conversations with your seller by saying, you don't need me to, right? Whether it's sell your house, you don't need me to find a house, whatever that be. I think psychologically, it's really disarming, right? For even right now, you don't need, if it's interest rate, whatever the objection is, you don't need to worry about X. You don't need me to get you the lowest rate, because then they won't bring that up as a concern 5 seconds later. That disarming effect of whatever you think is going to be their biggest hesitation, their biggest fear, to disarm that fear right up front with a powerful leadership-driven statement is huge. And I think people need to always think about that in their pitch to their clients, right? In this market, above all the other things that you said, we need to lead our clients to make the right real estate decisions. They want a leader. That's why they're picking these top producing agents like you guys. And I think that is getting lost a lot with some agents that let their clients lead them.
I 100% agree. And I think as far as the marketing dollars go, now, granted, I will be the first to admit I'm not the most polished on social media. I struggle with many things on social media. Perhaps it's attributed to my age right now. I'm not super old, but I'm not young. But, at the end of the day, you've got to be strong on your bricks and mortar. You have to. And I think there's been so many agents that came in and they're like, I'm going to buy some leads here. I'm going to pay some money on Zillow, and I'm going to put a bunch of signs out in the corner, and we're going to do some open houses. And they sold a bunch of homes and they thought, oh, this is easy. I'm just going to use this vanilla script and sell a bunch of homes. But as soon as that changed, they started to struggle. Now, I would also argue that they also underperformed relative to the market when their clients used them, but they were very, very good at, I would call it the smoke and mirror effect. Now the smoke and mirror is gone, and the clients, whether it's a buyer or seller, they got to see substance. And that's incumbent upon the individual agent to make sure they can deliver that. Because if you do, I promise you, this is very similar, I feel, to 2010, 11, 12, very different situation, but very similar. You can build market share here. This is a tremendous opportunity.
Right. Well, and listen, I don't think there's anything wrong with you not being a social media guru. I love that you brought that up, because I started off by saying, here's a top 50 agent in the entire country that is self-admittedly not focused too much on social media, but you got there one way, by being consistent in taking care of your clients at the highest level, which is an important point here, because many realtors are always looking for the next greatest thing. And then we forget what is right in front of us. We all forget that 70 to 80% of our business is coming from our past clients, is coming from our sphere. So why are we putting 100% of our energy on maybe 20% of our business? Why aren't we putting 100% of our energy into 80% of our business income? So I think this is a really good thing for agents to remind themselves of. Let me ask you a question, Nevin. If you're a consumer right now in this market, and I feel like most consumers are starting to realize that I do want to be aligned with a professional, what type of advice would you give to agents about really working on their craft right now? What type of advice would you give?
So what I would say is knowledge of everything you could think of. So, what is sold in the last 6 months, what's sold a year ago, what's sold 2 years ago. You have to understand that with great detail. You have to understand who is selling the properties, who are buying the properties, where is that target audience? Like, for instance, right now we're seeing very, very low levels of what I would call move-up buyers right now. The majority of the transactions I'm doing are one-way people into the Twin Cities or people that are relocating out, right? So you have to know that. The second thing is, and I think this is really, really important, but people love stats and data, and I get that. But stats and data are only important and relevant, really, in a static marketplace. As soon as you are in an incline or a decline, you have to make an inference on the data. You can't just extrapolate that data. And I think a lot of people are making that mistake. So right now, if I go and I'm comping out a home, and I don't have enough data from, really September, even October for that matter. So I go into the first part of the summer. That's not going to do my seller any justice. I've got to be able to say, okay, the market has moved. Here's why. Here's the correct position. Here's why I believe that's the correct position, and make that case. Now, for instance, we sold a home a couple of weeks ago, and I guess that I'll use these examples because they're maybe a little bit more helpful. But I told my client, I said, I want to sell you this home as though you are buying this home in January of 2021. And so I said, that's going to be our target. And I said, if you get that price, I don't care what the interest rate is, you are insulated from a lot of risk. And we nailed it. And he basically bought the home at a January 2021 price. Now, obviously, the interest rate's higher, the payment's higher, but from a value proposition, he's going to do pretty well, long term. And so I think being able to have those conversations, and it all stems from knowledge. You have to invest in knowledge.
The Neighborhood Realtor Podcast is proudly made possible by the support of our sponsors, Treadstone Funding and Neighborhood Loans, two amazing Midwest mortgage companies that now have offices all around the country. If you're a real estate agent looking to partner with an amazing lender, DM me at mattmusk88 and I'll connect you with someone in your market. If you're a lender and you want to join the right mortgage company, DM me and I'll connect you as well.
Any market, regardless if it's a buyer's market, it's a seller's market, it's a high rate market, low rate market, there's always a way to find value play. And so for you as the realtor to come to your clients with the value that they should be looking for, rather than the fear that they definitely have, rather than the value they think they want, that's what a truly great agent is able to do right now, especially when you have that market perspective.
Well, and it's and Nevin, I'll let you speak on this, but it's the intangible of how are you relaying this in a confident manner, right? So it's one thing to know the stats, but if you show up in somebody's living room and you're presenting stats in a confident, fumbled matter versus leading people, directing people, speaking with confidence, that little piece right there, I believe, makes all the difference. Would you agree with that?
100%. I would say that's spot on. So when you know it, you got to know it in a conversational method. Number one. Number two is identification of the personality you're talking to, right? So this is what I call the ultimate challenge. Whether you have a touchy-feely client or you have somebody that is like me, which is probably the complete opposite. I'm just direct to the point. Let's go. The objective remains the same. Right. But both of them will subscribe to different verbiage. And so, and both of them will buy what you tell them when you explain it in a coherent manner. But you have to understand how to articulate that based on if you're talking to me or if you're talking to someone truly touchy-feely. And that's a skill that you also need to be able to, learn. And I'm still try to perfect that as much as possible, even now, because if you do not or communicate that in a proper manner, they're not going to buy what you're selling. You might know the most amount of things possible, but if you don't communicate it properly, you won't get the job done.
Correct. Well, and it goes back to potentially for your personality style, having empathy for somebody that's maybe scared right now, right?
Right.
You've got to recognize that I'm a very direct person. I'm ready to get the job done, but I actually need to realize that I've got to take a step back right now and deliver this in a way that is caring, compassionate, empathetic, but confident.
Right.
So it's truly like playing a game of poker, right? I mean,
absolutely. And, you've got to make that read, and then you've got to really, you have to have self-control because, everyone wants to behave in the knee-jerk reaction of how their default is. Right. And if you just allow that to occur, 50% of people are probably going to be significantly different than you. So You've just eliminated 50% of the marketplace.
Right.
So I know we're kind of getting towards the end here, but I want to hear from both of you guys. What are you each super excited for in the current market that we're in or in your business, something new that you're trying? I want to hear of what's really getting you pumped to get to the office in the morning.
You want to go first, Josh?
Yeah, I can start. I'm excited. I learned a lot about, I learned a lot about this last year when everybody was confused on market conditions. We just doubled down. We absolutely doubled down on wrapping our arms around our clients. When people were pulling back, we were pushing forward. We were having tons of client events. So I'm really excited to lead the charge in that arena with continuing to have consistent communication with all of our clients, because we're seeing the same thing. Not a huge internet lead fan right now. I think it's a ton of work. I think it's a very saturated market. And I think that our clients are going to continuously feed us if we take care of them and stay top of mind. One other thing I'm excited about is we are producing a ton of local video content right now, showcasing our community. We're pushing this content through YouTube. It's our Living in Grand Rapids series, really focused on YouTube and SEO at a high level, gaining a lot of traction through that because I'm trying to create my own Zillow per se, right? But I want these leads to come to me. I want these people to know us. I want them to have seen our video. And I want these leads to be a little bit more of a slam dunk for our future. So I'm very heavily focused on the video community content and then just doubling down on our database in 2024.
Josh, I want to elaborate on that for a second because I was playing pickleball the other day with a complete stranger and we were trying to figure out who we knew in the same circle. And he knew you, Abby, and Ross on your team because you guys went to his gym and filmed a community video at his gym, which made him feel super great. And you weren't his original realtor, but you were the realtor that he could name. Because I was like, oh, I work in real estate. He's like, oh, do you know the May Group? And I was like, oh, did you work with them? He's like, no, they came to my gym to shoot a video and it was great. They like did free publicity for us. It was Zach, and he loves you guys and will absolutely be a client of yours at some point when him and his wife decide to move. And so like, I think people need to realize, like, we talk about video. It's not just all for like internet leads and SEO. That isn't a fringe benefit, but it's for those relationships you get to make in the community. It's a reason to reach out. So I love that. And I think more people should do it too. All right. How about you, Nevin?
There's three things that excite me, and I'm just going to be raw if that's okay. So the first is I'm rebuilding my business. So I'm basically ripping it down to the studs, and I'm going to make sure we're pointed in an accurate direction from a marketing standpoint, from where we're going to get our next, transaction. It's very important because we can't operate like we did the last 2 years. That just won't work. The second is I feel like we're in a much more controlled market. So we have a lot more time, which is great. So I'm trying to learn a lot more things that I have never done, like video. And, I'm doing some podcasts, which is really exciting. And so I want to delve into that and get caught up to speed on that. And then the third thing is I'm just excited for agents that really don't deserve to be in our industry because they are not professional. Get basically whacked. I mean, I'm just being honest. They don't know what they're doing. I don't like the fact that they enter into a space. They diminish the brand and the feeling out there of what we call a professional agent. I mean, it's the same thing in every industry, attorneys, whatever. But that to me is opportunity. And the more transactions that I can do with other professionals, the better it is for our community, quite frankly. So I think that's something that excites me.
Well, we're going to certainly see that. I know on my end, I studied the numbers. We've lost 100,000 mortgage lenders since last year. So in a 1 year period, 180,000 started. Now we're at 80. I would predict that as we get closer to January 1st, we're going to lose another 30,000. So professionalism on that side is going to change a lot more for the better. And on the real estate side, I think a lot of realtors eventually just like escrow their license and they go that direction. But again, that takes them away from being the person that you have to deal with. They might get some small referral fee here or there, and eventually they're out. So we're definitely going to see that. And I'm super excited to see how that further amplifies the business and professionalism that good quality agents are doing. So we always end the show, Nevin, if someone wants to get in touch with you, if they have a buyer or seller in the Twin Cities, in the Minnesota area, how would they get a hold of you?
Well, my website, www.nevinrealestate.com. Nevin is just like Kevin with an N. So you can go to my website. There's a contact form there. My email, nevin@nevinrealestate.com. And you can certainly call me, which I guess I can give you the number right here. It's 952-484-8231. Very happy to take care of anybody in the Twin Cities market.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show today. Looking forward to the next one. Anyone listening, if you have not left a review, this is how we get more amazing people to become guests on the show. Please take a second, go to Spotify, go to Apple, go to your favorite place, leave a review. Helps us out a ton. And see you guys next time.